Hey everybody, it's time once again for You Guessed It.
Get in my belly!
Hey everybody, what's going on? Eric here. Hope everyone's doing well out there. Right now what I'm doing is continuing to work on the Dean Tonic electric guitar. So I've already got the frets completed. They've already been leveled, crowned, polished. Everything's done. The fretboard has been oiled. Sucked it up a little bit. Might have to add just a little bit more oil to it. But right now I want to work on this headstock and get it back to... it looks good now, but I want to get it back to basically kind of like what it was when it was new. There's no really deep scratches in it. There's no chipping. There's no part. This guitar was in pretty good condition when I got it, other than being pretty dirty. But other than that, it did need some work on the frets. That's why I did the fret leveling. I'm going to replace some of the electronics, so it's going to get a few mods to it. But again, I'm going to work on this headstock. So as you can kind of see right now, it's not bad. It's got a pretty decent shine to it. You get the glare and everything else. I kind of polished it a little bit with the number 2 machine polish just to clean it a little bit. Kind of blew it off first to remove a lot of the dust particles and stuff, and then did a little bit of a rubbing with the machine polish. Now, I've worked with a lot of finishes before, but mostly automotive finishes, and a few things with working on projects around the house as far as wood projects, molding, staining, furniture, refinishing, just a few projects that, you kind of find around the house that needs to be taken care of and stuff like that. Furniture, I've done headboards, dressers, end tables, coffee tables. Coffee tables went with the end tables, and restaining, refinishing them, putting some type of a sealer on there, either a gloss or a satin or a matte finish. So I kind of been around this stuff a little while, basically all my life. And if I didn't physically do it, well, I got to watch my father do it and learn from him. So the one thing that I kind of learned with the electric guitars is that I've been using the same process that I would use on a automotive finish as far as polishing goes. And I've had pretty much damn good luck with it. I've done the rub-on poly on guitars and treated it just like if I was polishing a vehicle. I've done the epoxy resin and treated it the same way as if I was, polishing a vehicle. And the finishes came out like glass. Came out through a mirror finish. You could read a newspaper in it. I have videos on my channel that show this. And I've learned to trust the 3M product. Other products we've tried using in the past, and it just didn't seem to work as good as a 3M. On guitars, because of not really knowing what type of finish it is, like say if you have a guitar that has a matte finish or a satin finish to it, I wouldn't use a 3M polishing product on that, because you might get a semi-gloss out of it, or you might end up getting a pretty decent shine out of it, and it's not supposed to be like that. What I've been doing with everything that has a gloss finish to it is I've been using the 3M rubbing compound, this is abrasive, so you can't just use this without following it up with machine polish. Now, I've learned after doing a machine polish, surprising enough, the Scratch Doctor stuff works pretty good as far as removing whatever marks that the other finishes left behind, at least the machine polish. So what I want to do is I want to hand rub this headstock out, and it can be done. Don't let people kind of fool you into using different things for polishing out, like for say paper towel. Okay, paper towel is not something that you would probably clean your eyeglasses with, would you? Because it's going to leave scratches. A lot of the new glasses that are out there now are kind of like a plastic instead of being actual glass. So paper towel is going to end up scratching up, plastic. I know with the motorcycle thing, using paper towel on a screen, a wind visor that's on a fairing of, basically any motorcycle that's out there, those are plastic. They have a UV coating on them. You use paper towel on it and you scratch the shit out of it. Now it's like looking through a haze. So I wouldn't use that on a gloss product either, as far as automotive or even guitars. Newspaper, we used to use a lot of newspaper for cleaning windows, and it wouldn't destroy the windows necessarily, but newspaper would scratch the finish of a vehicle, and so you don't want to use something like that. I've trusted the good microfiber cloths, not the cheap ones. Cheap ones I use as rags. The good microfiber cloths I use for polishing, and I've had very good results with no problems whatsoever. So if you're going to use, say, a automotive product on your electric guitar, I would say try to a small spot first, just to see what's going to happen. And if you do have the 3M system for polishing, go through all 3 steps and see if you come out the same way as I do, which is not a bad thing. So right now I'm going to use the rubbing compound. Like I said, this has a mild abrasive in it. And when I mean the good microfiber cloths, I mean the microfiber cloths that have the same texture on both sides. You can't tear these things apart by hand. They're pretty strong. They're nice and soft. And make sure you don't drop them on the ground. Don't even put them on your workspace, because they'll end up picking up stuff that is either on your workspace, and you'll be scratching it into the finish when you're trying to polish out. I have a separate spot off to the side of me, basically my stool, and I put all my rags on that stool. I know my ass isn't dirty, so the stool shouldn't be dirty either. So I'm going to put a little bit on here, because it don't need a lot. It's a small area to rub out. About the size of a dime, if not maybe a little bit smaller. Kind of smear it into the rag a little bit. Go ahead and kind of put it on the surface, and then start rubbing it into the surface. Now how this works is how you rub it in. You just can't just put it on and go like this and then wipe it off. That ain't gonna work. You have to rub this shit inside of it, the finish, in order for it to actually polish. And how you know you get a good polish is when you get it up into any type of a light with a glare. Black will not look hazy. It'll be deep black, not a hazed black. And it doesn't really, like, you can go side to side with it. You can go circle motions with it. You can do however you want to do it. As long as you rub it in throughout the whole surface evenly, you should be able to come out with a nice shine afterwards. Now again, I'm using the rubbing compound, so it's not going to be as like water glossy as, say, the final rubbing compound or machine polish would look. See, I don't use a lot of rubbing compound because it'll end up getting into the holes and into the cracks of everything, and you don't want that. So, all right, so I'm looking at it now, and I see a little bit of a hazing in the black. Not much, but just a little bit. So, next process will be the number 2 rubbing compound, which is the machine polish. Now, if I were doing this in the garage, I would be using the appropriate pads on my little hand buffer for the polish that I'm using. Again, you don't need a lot. You don't have to put so much on there where you're going to drown it out and get it all into the holes and everything else. Rub it in. Now, if you notice that your guitar, say Ibanez, after doing something like this, and you start seeing the logo fade, stop. That means that the silk screening is on top of the clear or the sealer, not under it. In this case, it's under it. Because I already did that with one Ibanez where I ended up basically kind of like wiping off the silk screen that was on the headstock where the logo is. Now, I've already tried wiping the back of this thing down with the rubbing compounds, and it didn't change too much as far as the discoloration goes. Well, it's old. This is not a new guitar. It's got some age to it. See, now I'm getting more of that wet look, like somebody just poured water or some type of a liquid over it, to where it is got more of a shine to it than what the first stage of the rubbing compounds did. And that haziness that was in the black is going, basically kind of gone. I just have the rubbing compound residue that I need to remove. So that's that part there. Now, the next part is something that I would use the number 3 of the 3M, which is a hand rub, but I'm going to go with the Scratch Doctor. Find a clean spot of the rag to use. And again, you don't need a hell of a lot of this stuff. I mean, just a dime's worth would do good. You know, you are applying some pressure to this when you're rubbing it out, because between the chemical and the pressure, I mean, you won't put so much pressure you're going to break the headstock off, but the pressure that you're adding to the rag that you're using is also working with the chemical that you're using for the rubbing compound or polishes to bring out that shine, remove those fine scratches. And again, you don't just want to wipe this on and wipe it off. You want to work it into the finish. There you go. Like I said, you want black to look black. Not like it's got a haze to it. And that gives you your, what some people call wet look. All right, so next I'm going to be putting the tuners in, putting the string tree in, and doing a few other things. And I'm going to fast forward this so you don't have to watch me kind of like slow motion do all this stuff. So here we go. Alright, so I have the D neck put off to the side. That's pretty much done. I don't have to do any more with that. And start working on the body of this guitar. One thing I always kind of say is never throw away any of your cut off pieces of shrink tubing. Because, you know, these little pieces here, like especially like something about this size in length or this size in length, perfect for, you know, use, even if you have to trim it down a little bit. Still perfect for what you can use it for or need it for. And so I got my cap, and it's right here, this little tiny little bastard. That's what I'm going to be putting inside this, get rid of that green cap. I don't know what the number is. I have to go back and look it up. It came with a Les Paul kit that I ordered. I used one of those caps in a Ibanez guitar, and it really gave it a good sound as far as, adjusting your tone and stuff. I got my CTS pots right here. I've been waiting for this to show up. This showed up today. This is my guitar shielding paint. I could put put this stuff inside of it. I got plenty of it. But the bad thing about it is sometimes it wants to peel away from the shielding paint. If it doesn't have a good adhesive on it, it will peel away and pull away from the shielding paint. So I'd rather use paint on top of paint than put something like that may come loose. You don't want that to touch anything that's may ground out and cause problems with your guitar. I'm also going to shield the inside of the switch cavity and then run a wire to ground this side to this side. And I got a feeling that they didn't do any shielding in the pickup area either. So I got my CTS. God, man. I got my audio and linear, and that's going to be installed here. One thing that I have a pet peeve about is wiring. And ever since I got into the car audio thing, where a lot of it is, you got 90% of it is the audio, and then another 10% is like the showing it off, the install, the wiring, how you color code things. And if your color coding is consistent throughout the whole wiring system for negative and positive, and your audio cables and your RCA cables and shit, I always go with a theme basically. But in real life, you still have to use the same technique basically when you're doing any type of wiring. That way the difference between hot and cold, your negative and positives. And on the guitar, I do the same thing. I use the same kind of wiring if I would do for, if I was doing a car audio system. All of my negatives will be black. All of my hot wires will be, either a red, a white, a blue, something like that. And in this case here, they did a beautiful job as far as keeping it looking clean and not looking like a big fucking wired mess, especially for just, having two pots inside here. But they color coded it. Your grounds are all black and your hots are all white, which is nice. But I'm going to replace that. The soldering job that they did on this switch over here is really, really shitty. They got wires kind of tied in over here that are, looped around each other that don't need to be. And in some cases with this wire that they use, if you move it several times a little bit, it almost looks like it's going to come loose. And the way that they have this wire right here and the way the grounds are, they're real close to this hot spot where the pickups are going into. And if somebody would have came in here and kind of moved some wires around, maybe pushed this ground up against this pin right here, that's going to ground you out, and you may have either no sound or really bad, scratchy, goofy sounds on how well it made a connection. So I want to redo all that. I have my own wiring that I like to use. I'm still going to keep the color coding as far as the black and the white, but I'm going to use the braided insulated wire to do this. Now I probably, other than the output jack, I don't think I'm going to need to use the braided, the metal braided shielded with the cloth on the inside. Probably just for this is all I'm going to use it for, because nothing else really calls for it. Yeah, everything is pretty simple. And I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not going to go any fancy wiring. Basically what I'm going to do is desolder everything and resolder with new wire back on the same pins. I cannot use my StewMac S model mega switch that I wanted to put in here, because the S stands for like Strat. And the switching is totally different than what I need for this guitar. So I'm going to start getting into this. And So I can sit there and basically wire up everything, move everything off to the side, paint the inside of the cavity, wait for that to dry, run my grounds, and put everything back in. So at this point in the video, I want to share a little something with you. So listen to this and then look at what I'm going to show you afterwards too.
This is a little rough, but again, as anyone knows, I do have the ability to clean these up, or clean instruments up, despite what some mentally unstable individuals think about my ability to work on instruments and love to make videos obsessing about it.
Alright, so this here looks like, basically maybe a standard wiring of the inside of a guitar. But when I show you what I show you, this is the reason why some people say what they say about your work. Not being obsessive. Alright, first off, if I would have bought a guitar and cracked it open and seen what the control cavity looked like as far as this, I would be like, what the hell? What kind of amateur did this? Number one, the foiling is really terrible. I mean, I could see air pockets, a lot of wrinkles. It wasn't even really smoothed out. And again, this has been shielded on top of, this has been taped on top of shielding paint, which doesn't stick very well. Now, I have some arrows here pointing to highlight a few things. And one of them is the output jack. There are some frayed wires on the output jack. It's not very clean as far as the soldering job goes. The switch, globs of solder on each wire. You have to learn how to tin a wire and then touch that wire with the solder very lightly and put a little bit of solder on the terminal. And then when you touch the two together and heat them up with a soldering gun, it kind of melts into place and it doesn't look like that. Another big thing that I noticed here right away when I first saw this picture was the tone control and the capacitor that is on top of the tone control. When you look at that lead coming from the terminal and going to the capacitor, it is touching on top of the back of that tone control, which means that that tone is actually doing jack shit. You're grounding out the capacitor before it even gets to the other side of the capacitor where the ground is. So that's really serving no purpose at all. This is the work of an amateur, so it's not like nitpicking somebody else as far as their work goes or being obsessive of what they're doing and how they're doing. This is just telling people this is the wrong way of doing things, and this is the work of a I wouldn't even say amateur. Looks like the work of someone who just learned how to solder. Alright, so if Terry makes a video and he is showing how the tone control is working correctly, well, his photo tells otherwise, and he saw this video and corrected the problem, probably not even knowing that he screwed up. But anybody who does electronics knows that when you ground out something, it's not going to serve any purpose at all. So with that capacitor being ground out on top of that tone control, he has no tone control because it's basically bypassing that capacitor right now and serving no purpose at all. So if he ends up correcting the problem, then I know he watched this video. Now, if you notice in this part of the video, I take a piece of sandpaper and I'm scuffing up the back of the CTS pots. Well, there's a reason for this. A lot of times there is a coating on the back of the pots. If you do not remove that coating, scratch it off, it can still act as a conductor, but the solder won't stick to it. So removing that coating just ensures that the solder will stick to the back of the pots. All right, so it is a new day, and I'm going to finish this thing up. So this is going to be a very long video, as you could tell. Anyways, if you've ever been around car audio and you've heard the word twisted pair, well, it's kind of what I'm doing with the wiring of this guitar. Is I've got a positive and a negative, and I'm twisting them together. Now, what that does is it acts as a noise canceller. So you have your ground and your positive wound together. Now in the car audio, if you looked at speaker wire, if you looked at mostly RCA wire, so when you have your low output coming from your head unit going to your amplifiers, and you look at the wiring itself as far as the RCA cables go, you'll see that they're twisted together. The reason being is that gets rid of and cancels out noise. So I'm doing the same thing with this. So I'm using a drill, old trick of, basically making twisted pair wires. So I take my drill, hold the wire, turn it on, and just start twisting as I'm going down the line. Done. Now you don't want to do this too fast because you could end up pulling the wire, twisting it, and causing yourself some other problems. So now I have a twisted pair. I don't need this length here, but I do need it to go from the volume control to the output jack. So I am going to measure it a little bit, and I'm going to cut what I do need. Got the soldering gun heating up right now. Now I do not get rid of the wire that I cut. Probably going to be using it for something else later on. And this makes this whole application look, nice and neat. It doesn't look like a mess. You could tell what's going where. You could tell what's what as far as ground and positive and negative. And it just overall makes things look a hell of a lot neater. Tell you what, it is very hard to get this insulation off of these wires, that's for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and tin up this wire just a little bit. If my soldering gun is hot enough, clean the tip. Now the nice thing about this wire is that it's not plastic, so it's not going to fray back itself when it's heating up. So that's kind of a nice thing about this shit. All right, so I have my tin. Now, as you can see, I got a little bit more on there, and the reason being is when I attach it, it's going to melt into the pot, and I'm not going to have to worry about anything. So I need a piece of shrink tubing for this. Put that over my hot wire. Stick my hot wire where on the pot, the middle prong, and that's it. She's attached. And it is not a messy connection either. It looks very, very nice, very clean, that's what you're looking for. Heat that up. Melt that in. All right, so I have two grounds here I need to attach. One of them is going to the bridge, and the other one is going for the output jack. So what I want to do is I want to basically connect these two together. Get these things. I had a pair of wire strippers. I do not know what happened to them. the old-fashioned way. Strip it with your teeth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these two together because they're both grounds. I'm going to add a little bit of solder on top of my grounding point. And then I'm going to go ahead and ground this. Now, the one thing people have a problem with as far as using a soldering gun is they're afraid they're going to burn themselves. If you're afraid that you're going to burn yourself, just get over it, because you know what? You are going to burn yourself. It just happens. Okay, get this to melt really good. I should be using the heavy-duty soldering gun. I don't like this pencil one. There you go. Come on, melt in there. Put a little bit more solder on the top of this to clean it up a little bit. And get that to melt in there. There you go. Melt. Melt, you bastard. Melt. There you go. Make it look nice and neat. Now I have 4 grounds tied into one spot. Everything looks clean. Everything looks nice and neat. And I'm going to connect it to the output jack and get rid of this wiring right here. So the ground is the longer pin. Alright, so now that is done and everything is moved off to the side, I'm going to start the shielding of these two. Now, first thing I want to do is blow out any type of particles, dust, or anything inside of here. Now, the nice thing about this kit, it comes with the shielding paint, comes with a brush, comes with a cloth wire, comes with a terminal, and it also comes with a fat-ass screw, which I probably won't be using for this. I'll be doing this a little bit differently. So I'm going to go ahead, shake this stuff up. I don't know if it is, separated with water or anything else. And open her up. And start painting away inside of here. Get that brush nice and soaked. Now you want to be careful you don't get it on the body of your guitar. And you want to make sure, since they shield the cover for this, okay, but they didn't shield the actual compartment. So you want to make sure that you put some shielding paint right where your mounts are for the screws that are going to hold the top down, the cover on there. That way you get a nice good connection. Alright, so that's it for now. I gotta wait for this stuff to dry and then start putting all the controls back in and solder up the output jack. So I'm done for now. This is a very long video. Apologize for that. And hope you guys enjoyed and hope you guys learned a little something. So next video I'll be grounding these two areas together, and then I'm going to check to see if the pickup areas have been shielded and ground those as well, because there's no way you're going to be able to get paint from the hole going from here to where the pickups are. Alright guys, stay tuned for that video. Once I get that done, there'll be setup time. And yeah, now anybody who knows about this shit, shielding paint, you get this stuff on your fucking hands and it's a mess. It's really hard to get off. So alright, you guys take it easy, have a good one, and I'll catch up with all you all later.